indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, could you please take roll call?
Mr. Colwell?
Here.
Mr. Lilly's here. Mr. Roman?
Here.
Scott Ruggles?
Here.
Mike Powell?
Here.
Andrea Voorhees?
Present.
Liz Smith?
Here.
All present, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. I'm looking for approval or changes on the agenda. Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to, on the board table tonight is an FYI from a citizen in regards to the Four Corners meeting that we had a week ago, and just want to distribute copies, make sure everybody had those. I'd like to add to the agenda tonight the March 28th meeting minutes. That was also that public meeting we had on Four Corners. I'd like to add item 10J, Resolution 17007, having to do with property purchase, and also remove item 12B from the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as requested.
Have a motion, looking for support? Support. I have motion, support. Any conversation?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a correction. I guess that's Resolution 17006.
Oh,
I
I beg your
apologize
pardon.
for that.
006.
I'll support the amended motion.
We have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Like to move into item 5 on this. This is public comment. Public comment is for anything that typically is not on the agenda. You will be allowed 3 minutes. You need to come to the podium, identify yourself, and you may speak. Is anyone at this moment in time like to speak? Mr. Hankus. Mr. Hankus, you are a public comment.
Okay. Within the last week, I sent all of you on the board an email concerning what my appeal would be on regarding permit fees. Did you all get that?
Yes.
Okay. So without me reiterating the whole thing, I got $966 here. $200 was for something that wasn't even needed. Is anyone prepared to suggest an adjustment in this for me? I don't particularly want to go through everything in front of everybody, but I can.
At this moment in time, we'd like to hear what you have to say about it in brief, just to make sure that we're aware of it. And again, just to make your point, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. Well, first, the $200 permit is from 3 years ago. It was carried on the books and never brought up, I guess. It was actually addressed to one of my tenants, not me. But I had an apartment in the front of the building, and Lisa Hamamick and Sean O'Neill, yeah, how could I forget that? And Sean O'Neill wrote me a letter and said that I could not have an apartment there, and so it needed to be turned into a business. Well, lo and behold, after many, many, many appeals to the board, I was finally given a permit to change not that unit, but another unit into apartment, which also Sean and Lisa had blocked. And I guess all you guys on the board, except for Liz, remember that I've brought that information to the board many, many times. Is that not true, everybody? And ask you to review the law that Lisa would never review, which gave me the right to have an apartment there. So there's $200 for a reoccupancy fee I didn't need to pay because I didn't need to change my apartment into a retail space. Okay, can we knock that off?
If that's what you're asking for?
Well, that's part of it. And then the other is I finally got my permit to build an apartment in my building, or to convert some space in my building into an apartment that was previously storage space. And Brent granted that permit, and the fee was $716. I'm not arguing about Brent's fees. I think he's a very fair man. But I think because I was prevented from getting this permit for 3 years because of these two playing games with the law, I would like that reduced.
Okay.
That's right, Luke.
All right. At this moment, I will tell you that we will take that under advisement, and we'll have some conversation with you. Mr. Powell, do you have a comment?
I would, and I'd just like to, just to see whether or not we can't settle this tonight. I'd make a motion to place this on the agenda and the last item before we close for regular business. So I make that motion, didn't know if there was a second.
I'll second.
For discussion,
For discussion.
for discussion.
Okay. I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I guess you'll be on a little bit later.
Okay, do I need to be present for that?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a public comment? Please.
Hi, my name is Debbie Wirtz, and I am the new program director for the White Lake Community Coalition. And I've started recently and found that a lot of people don't even realize that we kind of exist. So basically, real quick, we're a nonprofit organization that we work with the community to help empower youth to make some positive life choices, to help them, maneuver through life and avoid drug and alcohol use while strengthening families. We offer a lot of different programs as far as family education, programs for children, educating them on drugs, bullying, cyber safety, suicide awareness, all different types of things. And so we are looking to get the community involved. And so I'm reaching out into the community, trying to get more people from different sectors involved. Anyone, whether they're a concerned citizen, a parent, teacher, love to have a liaison from the township become on our board, or even if you want to volunteer to do a simple task. We have all kinds of different activities that we plan all year long. We're having like a mother-child celebration coming up in May at the community house. We do a Father's Day event, summer camps for kids, all kinds of different really fun things, just trying to give some kids an outlet and help them, empower them. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I've got tons of information if anyone is interested or if anyone wants to meet with me further to discuss things. We would love input from the township on what you feel the township needs, and we could see what we can, partner with and help get, because that's all part of it, working together as a community. So I was told this was the best bet to come tonight to introduce myself to everybody. And so I'd love to hear from anyone. And like I said, if you need any more information or anything like that, I'm available anytime to sit down with you. Or for anyone in the public, wants to hear more, I can leave cards and information. Yes.
Debbie, do you have, can you get my office all your contact information when you have a chance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Powell.
I was just wondering, what service do you offer that Huron Valley Youth Assistance does not offer?
We are in partner with Huron Valley. It's basically a layering effect. We are kind of specializing just for you guys, though, for the White Lake Township. It was kind of, originally it would start with Huron Valley. They found that that's a really big area to cover. And that's a lot of schools, and that's a really big area with Milford and everywhere. So they did set up recently the White Lake, because they felt there was a need there, and it is a growing community. So we are kind of specialized just for the White Lake residents. We're going to be getting into some of the White Lake, like the White Lake Middle School and a couple elementary schools in Lakeland. We have a couple programs in mind that we'd like to bring to the schools next year. But we're the same as Huron Valley. We partner with them. We do meetings with them. I talk with Randy and Jordan, if you know them, all the time. We do a bunch of partnering with them, so we're the same.
So do the police department, do schools, do counselors, and do parents all refer potentially problematic children to you?
Well, we're a little different than youth assistance. Some people get us confused because there is a youth assistance in Huron Valley, and they do have the casework services. We don't have a licensed caseworker, but people can contact us for resources. We do more just prevention type of stuff, where youth assistance actually has a caseworker, where teachers, the police liaison, stuff like that, can actually make referrals for this child to go and speak with the caseworker for further assessing to see what kind of needs those are. So we are a lot like youth assistance, but we do differ as far as they do have the casework services.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Any
thank
other
you.
board members have questions for the moment? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? That little one raised their hand, but I don't think that was going to say it. Okay. Moving on. Okay, moving on to consent.
Can I do a
Well, you had your 3 minutes. We'll get back to you a little later, Doug. Okay, thank you. Public comment is closed. We'll now go on to the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have support? Support. A motion and support. Any questions? Mr. Powell?
Just once, I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that last month, the police department had 80 calls per day that ran through their office. That's how busy our police department is. So I wanted the public to know that.
Yeah, so whenever you think you're wondering what they're doing, they're not at the donut shop.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't have a good one anyways, okay? Well, not really. Tim Hortons not too bad. I
There
should
you
take that, retract that statement. Okay. I go there in the morning and I be okay. Boy, I really put my foot in my mouth on that one, okay. Okay.
We got a great donut shop.
Yeah, we got a great donut shop, yeah. I forgot about that. With that, we have motion and support. Discussion, and no more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we would like to go to a presentation, and the presentation is going to be the swearing in of Officer Wade Swalwell. And I think I know this guy.
You will. Before we get started on that, I want to, under the consent agenda, you approved the civil service appointment of Alan Gaucher. And Alan, could you stand up? He was voted in by the police and fire. Lieutenant Sheldon nominated him. He's a very intelligent man, very pro-police, very pro-fire. He does a lot with the community, does a lot with our DARE program, and I'm excited to have his leadership on the civil service board.
Good. Thank you.
All right, Wade, come on up. You can take the long way. All right. All right. Just a little bit about Wade. He was born and raised in Clarkston. He lived in Clarkston and Waterford most of his life. He currently lives just north of us in Davisburg. I want to thank his wife, Andy. If you could raise your hand. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Lots of kids. Boy. Joshua. There you go. Joshua, Ty, Addison, Kaylee, Caden, and Tanner. You should be very proud of your father. And good luck. That's a lot of kids. I have 2, and that's what I can handle. And I can't imagine having 6. I graduated from the Oakland Community College with a criminal justice degree, and he graduated from the Oakland Police Academy in 2008. I've known him since then. I was a PT/DT instructor, and I got to scream at him for 4 probably long months for you. It was a good time. So we've known each other for a while. He has worked up in Saginaw County as a sheriff for the past 8 years, and we are lucky enough to have him apply here and get the job. He's a good man. So if you'd like to swear him in.
Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
police officer
police officer
for the Township of White Lake,
for the Township of White Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
If Andy, if you could come on up and we can pin the badge on. You can take the short way. There you go. If you could just, we want to take a picture of it so we can get, there you go. Thank you.
I don't think he has a vest on, so be careful.
Goes right through it.
Go here and yelling.
Okay, it's all yours.
What, are you writing a ticket already?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chief. Next item is 7B. It is the financial report from Plant Moran. This would be our, so to speak, our financial report card on the economic wherewithal of this township. Ladies?
I want to scooch the podium with me, shine your face if it's on the screen.
I hate to follow that because this is going to be really exciting.
Like watching paint dry?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
My name is Pam Hill. I am a partner with Plant Moran. I have with me here today Amanda Kronk, who is a manager with Plant Moran. Both of us work in our governmental practice, and we're here to talk a little bit about the results for the audit from December 31st, 2016. So we have met with the 3 full-time elected officials a few weeks back. We went through all 50, 60 plus pages of this in probably way more detail than you wanted, but we have gone through that in a lot of detail. Today we're going to present the highlights with some graphs showing some trends of where the township's been over the last 5 years and kind of just summarize at a high level the results of the audit. So if there are any specific questions on the financial statements, more than happy to go through those in a lot of detail, or any detail that you might want, but that's not our plan today. Again, we're more than happy to do that. So you have the graph presentation, you have your financial statements in your packet, and you also have the letter to the board, which we'll cover as well. So we did spend between 350, 400 hours this year auditing the books and records of the township. With that, pages 1 and 2 of your financial statement audit is your opinion letter. We were able to, once again, issue an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that you can receive from your audit firm. Basically, what that means is that the numbers as stated as of 12/31/16 in your financial statements are free of material misstatements. So again, I think as Supervisor Colwell pointed out, it's kind of like the report card for the township, and it's basically like getting an A+ on your report card. So we are going to talk a little bit about the financial condition here of the township as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda, and she's going to walk through some of the numbers.
Good evening.
Hi.
As you can see here, we have a few graphical presentations. As Pam mentioned, we're going to point out just a few highlights. There's more information here than what we'll cover, but we wanted to provide you that highlight. So as you can see here in these 2 far right columns, you'll see that the general fund revenue, the total ins into the general fund, increased about 12% from 12/31/15. Now, the township did see one unique transaction in the sale of the Redwood property. So that revenue is recorded and shown on the other revenue line, so that very top line. So that really is the driving force behind that big increase in revenue that the township saw. So if you look at all the other lines and other revenue sources that the township has, you'll see that all the revenue streams were fairly consistent with the same period last year. So really it is just that sale of the property that the township had this year, which was about $800,000. So
And that's other revenue?
yes.
Thank you.
So again, that really is the driving force behind that 12% increase this year.
Yeah, so kind of a one-time only type thing. You're not going to see that large increase every year.
Sure. So the next slide, we're going to still look at the general fund, but we're going to focus on the expenditures. So again, looking at the two far right columns, you'll see that the expenditures did go up slightly at about 6% for the year. Again, looking at each activity, all of the activities were fairly consistent again, with the exception of the transfers line. So this is again one-time thing, but that revenue from that property transfer was transferred to a different fund. So it was receipted into the general fund and transferred out. So again, one-time sort of transaction that you won't see every year. Another increase that the general fund saw was due to some strategic planning by the board in funding your other post-employment benefit expenses. So the township has been really focused on that. And again, you'll see that reflected here in your general fund. So you'll see some slight increases if you were to compare line by line. And again, that's really due to those strategic decisions and funding your health care benefits for your future retirees. The next slide, we're going to continue to look at the general fund, but we're going to look at fund balance. So this slide particularly looks at what is unassigned. So that means the general fund balance and whatever's left after the township board has made some assignments and earmarked some of the fund balance. So at 12/31 of 16, the township had about 44% of its general fund balance as a percentage of its expenditures, which is very consistent with prior year, which is good. So this really is, I don't want to call it an artificial number, but it's a little bit of an artificial number at the 44%. So what this number represents is how long the township could go if revenue streams stopped. So right now in unassigned, the township has about 5 months worth of expenditures. So whether that's a right number for the township or not is not for us to weigh in on. It's just for all of you to think about. What are the future needs of the township? What are our needs now? And it's really just a measure of, okay, where what your future needs might be and that sort of thing. So the 44% isn't good or bad, but it's just something for you to think about as you're making decisions and, what the budget's going to look like and that sort of thing.
Is there a rule of thumb for townships?
So I think, we get this question a lot. I think probably the number one question, like, what's the right amount of fund balance? What should we have, So we always like to say, of course, it depends, right?
Sure.
So I think back in, 2008-ish or so, the state came out with what they called their fiscal indicator score. And that's because a lot of communities were seeing great reductions in property tax values. And so they came out with a number that they had in their head, like what's our warning sign? Like if we see somebody falling below this, that's a warning to us. And that number that they used was 13%. So you're definitely over that number, which is good. You don't want to be at that, what they consider to be the minimum level, because then if you do have unforeseen things happen where you have emergency capital needs or your main revenue source drops 20%, you need to be able to have funds to fall back on. So they would use that kind of 13%, or they would have, as is a minimum amount. I would say that, kind of what Amanda alluded to was, we say it depends because it really does. So you could need a new, 10 new police cars, and you don't want to bond for them. So you've been saving up every year purposely so that when it comes time to buy those 10 new police cars, you have the cash. So in that case, at the end of those, let's say you're saving up for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, your fund balance is going to look a lot higher, right? Because next year you're going to take that fund balance and you're going to use it to buy 10 police cars. So that's why a lot of it just depends on what your future plans are for the township, what you've been saving up for, what type of long-term needs you have in terms of legacy costs. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of your legacy costs related to retiree health care and stuff when we get into some of the legislative things, but also your infrastructure needs. So a lot of communities in the last 10 years, when they've had to slice their budgets, have stopped doing capital because that was the easiest thing to cut out, but that's not sustainable long term. We all know that, right? So start incorporating those types of things into your long-term plan. So I think the answer is it depends. I would say the township is in good financial health from you've been fiscally responsible, you've been monitoring your budgets, you've been cutting as your revenues have been cut, you've been cutting your expenditures appropriately, and that's what's kind of allowed you to maintain a healthy level of fund balance. But it is something that as you go through the budget process, every year, you kind of need to decide like, okay, well, like this year's a good example. We need to start saving for our legacy cost obligations that we've promised to retirees and employees. We're going to make a conscious decision to take some money and set that aside for that. So planned uses of fund balance are perfectly fine, and that's why you have more than the 13%. So I don't know if that helps.
Those examples would be assigned, however, and these are just unassigned balances, correct?
Well, you can use unassigned fund balance for those types of things as well.
all right.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Great. If we go to the next slide, we're going to look at a little bit bigger picture. We're going to look at all of the governmental funds of the township, which in the township's case includes all funds except the water fund. So you'll see here, if we go to the next slide, again, looking at the far right two columns, total expenditures in the governmental funds went up slightly, about 7%. Again, broadly, the reason for that increase is the conscious decision to start and continue to pre-fund your post-employment benefits. So the township did pre-fund about a little over $700,000 this year, which again is a conscious decision made by the board to continue funding that obligation. So that increase you'll see is spread amongst these various categories. If we take a look at the next slide, we're going to focus a little bit on the water fund. So the water fund, as you know, operates a little bit differently than all the governmental funds that the township has. So what we've depicted here in the blue bar is the water fund's operating revenue. So the amount of billings that are sent out to customers or into residents. The yellow bar you'll see there are the operating expenses. So the costs of this to operate the system, and that includes depreciation expense on the infrastructure. So what this graph is really telling you is the blue line bigger than the yellow, and how much bigger or smaller? So in an ideal world, those two bars would be as close to level as you could get them. And if you look here, in 2016, they're pretty close. So what that tells you is that the fees that are getting charged to residents almost mirror the expenses that the township is incurring to provide that service. Now, I did mention that this includes depreciation expense. So what that further means is that your rates are also covering the cost of your infrastructure, which is important because that infrastructure doesn't last forever.
And it's expensive.
And it's expensive. So like I said, the township, the water fund had a great year. It's always important to see your revenue almost equal to your cost, just so you know that your rates are in line with what the costs you're incurring. I will point out that 2016 you'll see the bars are a lot taller than 15. There was just a lot more water usage. It was a dry summer. That's really all that's a product of.
And some of it's the scaling.
Yeah.
50,000, each one's by $50,000, so it makes it look a little bit more.
Yeah. So water fund had a great year. It's always something to keep an eye on. We all know that the cost of everything goes up. Unfortunately, the costs don't usually go down, but it's important to just keep monitoring the operations of that fund.
How accurate does this chart show that the more water is used, the expenses are keeping up? So it costs money to produce that additional water. So is there anything hidden in the expense line there that kind of was an expense that's unusual, or does it actually show that the actual delivery of water is keeping track with the demand of water?
Yeah, so this graph doesn't include any what we consider non-operating. So if you have a capital contribution or something that we would consider to be out of the ordinary, this graph actually does not include any of that.
It's just operations.
Yep. So this is just strictly operations, what it costs to run the system and what's billed to the residents that use the system. Good question. All right, I think we'll move on to the next slide. which is hopefully everyone's favorite slide. So let's talk real briefly about property taxes. I know that everybody has been thinking about it, and you're impacted yourself. So what we like to point out on this graph is where the township was when property tax values really took a hit in 2009, and how long it's going to take the township to get back to that taxable value level. So we all know that property tax values aren't going to go up as fast as when they fell. But what this slide assumes is that every year property tax values are going to go up by inflation-ish. So we're assuming a 2% increase in taxable value every year. So what you'll see here is that by the year 2024, the township is almost back to where it was in 2009 taxable values. So what does that mean to the board? That means that you can't expect large increases in your property tax revenue overnight. We all know it kind of fell really quickly, the values did, but they won't be going up as quickly. So keeping that in mind during your budget process is important, knowing that your values aren't going to increase as quickly. So you need to just keep that in mind when you're looking at your expenditures as well.
The last couple of years, it has been a little bit higher than that 2%, just because you've had a lot of new growth. So keep that in mind, obviously, as well when you go into the budget season.
That's what I was gonna kinda ask, does that line assume that there's zero additional growth in the township? So if we had a subdivision that came in and there 500 homes were built in the next 2 years, it certainly wouldn't follow that same graph then, correct?
Correct. So we're assuming, like Pam said, it doesn't take into account growth. Yeah, so we're just basing this on an inflationary assumption.
It's more than likely you'll hit it earlier than that. It's meant to kind of just show the picture of look how fast it can drop. But because of Proposal A and Headley and the way that they kind of work against each other, you're really limited to the lesser of 5% or inflation unless you have new growth. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Excuse me. Do you want to let them get they only got a little bit further going if you have a question at the end? Okay, go ahead.
Are there any questions that we can answer for the board?
I pegged that.
We still have the letter. I just wanted to address any questions on the graphs, if there were any, before Pam moves to the letter. Great.
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Okay. She knows my address already. But that graph is very nice, but over that period of time, by the time 2024 is going to come around, we're going to be behind it even more because the rest of it's going up.
Yes.
So do you have a projection as to when it'll come back equal to what the township is actually experiencing as far as expenditure, or when those years will match?
No, so we don't project out expenditures, and really so property tax revenues in the general fund for the township. So if you were to look at the main revenue source of the general fund, it's not property taxes. It's actually state shared revenue money. So the state shared revenue, I think, is like $2 million, and property taxes are like $1 million. So even though this is a significant revenue source, I don't want to say that it isn't. It's definitely not the largest revenue source for the township.
The point I was trying to get at was inflation is going to affect the township.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
and that's why I was actually.
Well, yeah, and costs continue to rise. Sometimes larger than inflation, even with healthcare. So.
And the Headley amendment's got our hands tied.
Yes. Yes. The two, Proposal A and Headley, were never meant to work together the way they are.
Thank you.
Yes.
You have a question?
Yeah.
Just recently, I understood through the paper.
Mr. Hankus, for the record, Mr. Hankus.
Oh, okay, yeah, off the record. Recently, I was informed through the paper that White Lake had just spent 1.3, 1.4 million for a piece of land. Is that reflected in any of this, or is this last
These
year?
are numbers as of 12/31/16.
Okay, and that was done since then?
I believe so.
That hasn't even been done
It
yet.
hasn't been done yet.
So it's just proposed? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Easy.
Okay. Continue, please, Pam. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
If we're
Lowe.
ready for the board.
Are we ready?
No,
for-
we just have one more thing to cover in the letter really quick, and then.
I'll hold
we
my
should
questions.
Should be good to go. So I think first we did want to say, so I mentioned that we're here 300 to 400 hours, so that's a good 2 weeks. I did forget to mention that we did just want to say thank you to Elaine, Dawn, Terry, Rick, Mike. They really are very, very efficient. I mean, Elaine is top notch, and you guys are really lucky to have her. I always tease her that I want her to come and train all my other clients. But she really does a fantastic job, and so we wouldn't be able to get in and out so efficiently if it wasn't for her. So I did want to make sure that we recognize that.
So we get a rate cut next year.
She's been here a while.
So you get retro, right?
So I did want to point out nothing really significant in the letter this year. Pretty standard wording. So every year prior to the start of the audit, we communicate with the 3 full-time elected officials, and then we send out a letter to the entire board, just kind of letting you know about the plan, what our plan for the audit's going to be. This is the follow-up to that letter to say, did we follow our plan, and if we had to deviate from our plan at all, what deviations did we have? So we did not have any deviations from the plan this year. A couple things to point out, and we talked a little bit about this last year. I think it's on page, I don't have page numbers on my version. I think it's page 4 at the last paragraph. We do want to talk a little bit just about the sewer. So the way that the sewer fund is currently recorded is being shown as a special revenue fund. So, and that's because the costs the users of that system are paying the charges to the users of that system do not currently cover anywhere near the costs of running that system. And so until those facts and circumstances change, that will continue to remain being shown as a special revenue fund. If those facts and circumstances do change once the debt's paid off, there may be a presentation change in the way that sewer fund's being shown. So we show it in here because eventually at some point that will change, so we just want to make the board aware of that. And then lastly, the very last page, just to make the board aware, there is a new accounting standard that will be implemented for the township next year related to the retiree health care obligation that the township has. So Amanda mentioned that the township is contributing additional funds to set aside money for retiree health care. This is really a big deal across the country, but specifically within the state of Michigan. As you know, the state requires you to make your pension contribution every year. The state does not require you to set aside money for retiree health care. There was a new Public Act 530 that was passed in December of 2016. I'm sure you've seen things come out through MTA and such related to that. But that is going to require the township to, next year, after 12/31/17, you are going to be required to file something with the state as to what your plan is going to be, as to how you're going to get your retiree health care funded up to 60%. So if you're not funded 60%, you're going to have to report to the state as to how you're going to get there over the long term. Obviously, no one has $10 million just laying around that they can set aside. But I think your unfunded liability is around $10 million at this point. So that will be something that the township will have to consider. And you already are addressing it, so I think that helps in writing up that summary. Like, hey, the last couple of years we've set aside X, Y, and Z. And so I think you do have a plan, which is good. But you will be required to kind of formalize that plan in writing over the next year. So just kind of a new update on that.
Excuse me, Pam,
Sure.
along that line, it actually says after the adoption of GASB. Is that the township adopting that or after the state adopts it?
So two different things. So there is GASB 74 and 75. 74 will be adopted by the township next year. 75 will be adopted the following year. And that will require additional disclosures within your financial statement. PA 530, which was passed at the state level, that will require you to submit a report separate from your financial statement of a plan as to how you're going to become 60% funded. So it's same subject, two different reports. Okay. One we prepare, one you'll prepare. So you will need an actuarial evaluation. So I know, management is working on determining how they're gonna go about that, and, you know, looking for different actuaries, so you will see additional expenditures come through on the budget for actuarial evaluations going forward related to, the retired healthcare obligation.
Very good. Anything else, Pam?
That's all we had.
I'd like to open the board up to questions, if anyone has a question. Mr. Lilly.
Just to make a comment, notice Greg's in the office, or in the audience tonight, our former supervisor, and I want to comment briefly on some of the graphs that have shown. The graphs really show, even if we can project back another 10 years, there's been a lot of consistency by the leadership as well as the balance of the board to maintain an adequate fund equity. And as was indicated, when it was time to cut, we cut, and when it's time to grow, we grow. But as far as our maintaining a fund balance and a consistency about thinking about healthcare and all those, it's a tribute to all of the members of the board, not us, but past members as well, that that's happened. I'd like to also comment in regards to Elaine and Dawn. There's a lot that goes on a daily basis in regards to accounting and that process, and I'd like to compliment both of them for what they do for the township. Also like to compliment Plant Moran. You guys have been great to work with.
Thank you.
Not only complimenting staff, but as well as bringing things to our attention. I think we all realize that there's probably never going to be everything perfect, but I think you go a long way for bringing those out and helping us make those improvements along the way. So I just want to make those comments.
Anyone else? Michael Roman.
Just want to also thank Lisa Reeser, who's my deputy in the treasurer's office. Lisa supervises all of the receipts that come into the township, including all the tax receipts. And I know she's always helping out the auditors
Yeah, she was
as
a
well.
big help during the audit as well. Yep.
So, Lisa, if you're listening, thanks for all the help.
Mr. Powell.
I just had a question on the audit adjustment, what is on our page 3.
Oh, yeah.
There's a recommendation regarding a second individual to perform a review, and you kind of said it was a year's end review. Didn't know if it makes sense to have a different department or something do that on a monthly basis, and why wait until the year's end instead?
So, this specifically relates to adjustments that just get made at the end of the year. So it's accruals that, so for example, if you pay a bill in January that relates to services that happened in December, you are required to book it back for the audit period. But on a month-to-month basis, typically most of our communities don't do that just because it's a lot of additional work, and it doesn't really have a large impact until you get to the end of the year, because you have to have your balance sheet correct at the end of the year. So all of the reconciliations of your bank accounts and your investment accounts and all of the things that need to be reconciled on a monthly basis are being done. So it's just purely related to kind of those one-time adjustments that are made, was where some of that was coming.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members have a question? Okay, with that, I will say, ladies, I enjoyed working with you during the audit, as enjoyable as an audit can be. And I will say your professionalism is second to none, and it also is a reflection of the professionalism of our internal bookkeeping staff. And without their excellence, it would make this job more difficult. And doing their fiduciary duty as well as the board members, all the board members doing the same, makes the job go a lot easier. So thank you very much, and I will take that A+ as an A+.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Should we motion to receive and file, or we don't need to do that?
No, we don't need to do that. So, moving on to item number 8, the minutes. Item A will be February 21st, 2017. Mr. Clerk? Yes, sir.
Make a comment in regards to the meeting. I did have requests to change some of the conversation that was had before the board as far as public comment was concerned, and I have attached a copy of the requested changes, but quite honestly, I don't feel comfortable in making changes to somebody else's statements before the board. So I just wanted to attach that, and I'll leave the decision up to the board what you want to do as far as changes or whatever.
Attach the notes for the record?
I'm
Are
sorry.
you attaching the notes for the record?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay,
If I may, it's a date clerical error that was stated, just not recorded in the minutes.
we'll attach my suggestion would be to attach the letter of, that addresses that as part of the permanent record. That way it's in the file, and if anybody wants to look at it, they can read all parts of it and understand it.
So Liz's concern is that the October 30th was not referenced by a year, just the October 30th.
Right.
In other words, we can't ask that person whether or not she actually meant that, so it's hard
No,
for us to.
she did state the date.
Oh, she did.
It's just not in our minutes.
And you're not comfortable with just putting the year of 2015 on October 30th?
If you feel comfortable about changing somebody else's statement, whether they did or not, I didn't feel comfortable.
Well, you're saying that it was changing somebody else's statement, and Liz is saying it was actually stated at the meeting that it was 2015. Is that your representation? Then in the video, it was actually stated?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
It's been a little time since I've looked at it.
All
so.
right. Then obviously, if we were exactly sure, then I'd vote. I did want to say something that a number of years back, and I'm sorry I precede you guys, but Mr. Bob Long, supervisor of Commerce Township, many, many years ago, was attacked almost at every meeting, verbally just abused. And as public figures, we kind of have to take that. We don't have the ability to say, I'm sorry, you can't say that, or shut them up. They're allowed to kind of say anything they want at the public comment section. And so I don't feel comfortable adding in alleged allegations into the minutes. And since we don't know for sure, and the record keeper didn't pick up that it's 2015, I'm in agreement with Mr. Supervisor that we just attach this as a requested amendment and not change the minutes.
Very good. Any other questions? All in favor to approve the minutes?
No,
I beg your pardon?
I don't think there's been a motion.
I'll make a motion to
I beg your
approve
pardon.
as submitted with the
helps.
attachment from,
February 21st.
yes, from Liz.
Okay. Motion? Support?
No support.
Support? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. The minutes for March 14th, 2017. I have a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have support?
Support.
I have support. I have motion and support. Any discussion? In favor?
Approved.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Ayes have it. Minutes from item C, March 28th, 2017. That was a special meeting that we had at the Dublin Center.
Mr. Supervisor,
Powell.
just one small change on page 7. It's pretty straightforward. It was a comment by me on page 7 at the very top. It's carryover from item 1 on page 16 or page 6 to page 7. I was commenting specifically on the restaurant itself. And so I said I would like to see an outdoor area with benches and landscaping that people could sit outside. If we could just continue at the restaurant so that they know, because otherwise there'd be a lot of buildings with a lot of open space for benches and things.
Restaurant, you're talking about the building on the corner.
The building on the corner, that is correct, at the proposed restaurant.
You didn't want them just outside, Mike?
They could meander anywhere they want, I guess, but I was specifically talking about the restaurant area.
Bottom of 6, page on top, and outside of restaurant.
Yes.
I see on, I got it.
Yeah, thank you. Otherwise, I move approval of the minutes.
We have motion, it needs support. Support. Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes, thank you very much, okay. We are going now to item number 9, old business. It's a second reading, amendment to the Chapter 18 of the Fire Code. Lisa, anything to add to that?
This was an amendment requested by Fire Marshal Holland. He actually prepared it. I've reviewed it. It came to the Township Board last month for first reading. In front of you is both an amended, which is 1.5 page, and then also you have in front of you the entire ordinance redlining what the changes were. It's before you today for approval, if you agree with it.
All right, I have reviewed it. It does look like it is in line with what was proposed initially with a few alterations, nothing of any major concern to myself. Do any of the board members have questions regarding this? Mr. Lilly?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendments to ordinance 122.
I have motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support. Motion and support. Oh, Mr.
I just want to reiterate what I did last month, that this is a great idea to combine these two boards. They kind of parallel each other, and the same expertise is needed on both boards, and so I think this is a great idea.
Okay, very good. I have motion, support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 10, moving into new business, a 10A copy machine purchase for Dublin.
Make a motion to approve the copier purchase for a machine MPC 2504 with a lease payment of $137.59.
I have motion, looking for support.
Support that.
I have support from Andrea. Mr. Powell, you have a question?
Do you have any idea what the history is of the copy overages at the Dublin Center? Because this is, the $137.59 is just the standard rate, and then overages are extra. Didn't know what their history
Yeah, I
is.
don't have a reported history.
Okay.
So I would say it's cyclical.
I would thinking fairly low, I would think.
I would
so.
think fairly low, but
Okay.
when it's an election year, there might be more public notices, different things, or certain events happen. And I think that's just kind of cyclical with the operation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have motion, I have, Andrea supported that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 10B, we have a job reclassification and a pay scale change. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. This was originally on your agenda back in March, and at that time we were contacted just before the meeting by the union, who had asked us to hold off so that they had an opportunity to go over some of the questions that they had about the job description and pay scale, and meet with them. I think traditionally, according to Kathy DeRocher, who, as you all know, is deputy clerk and our human resources director, generally the board takes action and they have 30 days after the board meeting to do this. We agreed to just sit down with them in advance to iron these issues out. Basically, they wanted to shorten up the job description to staff planner rather than, or I should say senior planner rather than senior community and parks planner, which we're fine with, and that's what's being proposed tonight. Senior planner is a job title, and there were some pay scale issues. And I believe Kathy sent you all a memo dated April 7th that kind of details that these changes were made, and attached to her memo was the new pay scale, effective January 17th, the proposed pay scale, and the clean copy of the job description. Back in March, I provided you with a memo kind of going into the history of our current staff planner, Jason Michelangeli, and some of the many duties he's taken on since starting here almost 10 years ago. I included the 2003 job description that he was hired under, the 2012 version that added significant duties and responsibilities without a title change or pay increase, and then finally the proposed 2017 version, which has been cleaned up and is attached to Kathy's memo with the union's okay at this point. So I'd be happy to go into more detail or answer any questions you might have. So I'd appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Lilly.
Just for the record, the only difference in Jason's pay will be the difference between what he's making now in the 3-year number that you have there, which is roughly about a $2,000 raise?
That's correct.
No? Okay. So he's not starting at the beginning of this salary thing. He's really at the 2nd-year level already, and he will be granted the additional 3rd-year increase.
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Mr. Roman?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this new job description of senior staff planner as well as the attached salary schedule, and to move Jason in to this position with the pay change effective May 1st of 2017.
Very good. I have a motion. Looking for support?
I support.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Andrew, I have support. I have motion and support. Any further discussion? Mr. Powell?
I happen to remember another surveyor. Okay, I'll get it right. Another planner that came into the township a number of years ago. Jason reminds me very much of Sean when Sean first started under Steve, and so I've just been, I deal in this occupation a great deal, and Jason is first rate, and we should be very pleased to have him. And I also want to make a comment. There are other communities that have a really hard time holding on to planners, and so it really says that at least they're satisfied here in the township, and the supervisor and the staff work with them very well, and so it means a lot for those planners to stay around and not leave every year. So I wanted to commend the planning staff.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
I do have one comment to make myself, and that is that simply we are only as good as we plan ourselves to be. And if we fail to plan to fail. And having the right people in the right places help us get into the next level and help us go through all the changes that this community has seen. And hopefully the changes that we have will continue to be for the better, and be at a moderate growth rate that we can all learn to live with, and it'll be the best benefit to the community. So I know that I worked closely with Sean for some time, working on a planning commission before, and with Jason. And to me, it's Jason I, because I can never say his last name right. So nobody else either. Okay. And I think he's definitely earned his merits. And there has been multiple projects that we have put him on that we did not have to outsource to planning companies, professional planning companies. And those the savings more than outweigh this meager increase.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to put that to let him know that I'm very pleased.
The Parks and Rec liaison, Jason's been awesome. I've been on there within reason like 8 consecutive years. To me, we've moved further ahead with Parks and Rec with Jason and without Jason.
There's a special place in his heart.
Yep,
for Parks and Rec,
absolutely. There totally is.
Working with.
So he loves his job, and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 10C is the 2017 OPED employer contributions. And for the public, I will just say that this is part of what the group from Plant Moran was referring to. This is to fund our retirees in the future costs. So we're trying to be proactive so that we are not caught up in this financial wherewithal that so many communities are. And in reviewing what went on last year in the last quarter regarding this at the state level, there are a vast number of communities that are not moving in the best direction for this, and we're trying to be proactive. And I commend Mr. Peroni, our previous supervisor, for his actions in this, and I also will continue this action, and I know this board intends to continue this action. So, Mr. Clerk, do you care to address this one? Yep, I'm sorry. You had a question?
No, but
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Okay, Michael.
This is Mike's request.
Anytime we need money, Terry usually asks me to make a request. So, well, yes, as Mr. Colwell just mentioned, this is known as the OPEB liability, otherwise known as retiree health care, is what this is. This would be our 3rd year of actually funding it. We've funded over $1.2 million so far. This will bring us right up close to the $2 million. And I also want to thank the board for being as proactive as you all have been in supporting the fact that we really need to be doing this. This is really important. You can see that the state is also looking at this with the new GASB requirements that Plant Moran mentioned. So with that, I'll put this into the form of a motion that we go ahead and contribute $777,500 to our OPEB fund as broken down on the 10C memo.
I'll support that.
I have a motion, I have support. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 10D, budget amendment for property purchase. Mr. Clerk.
Just talk about the budget amendment. This budget amendment will actually move money from our fund balance into a special line item for the property purchase later on in the meeting.
Okay, very good.
Did you make a motion, Terry?
A motion for that? Or you-
I will make a motion.
Okay, in the form of a motion. I'm looking
I'll
for support.
I'll
Approve the
support
budget
that.
amendment.
Okay, I have a motion, I have support from Mr. Powell.
Yes.
Very good. I have motion, support, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Consideration to sell property at 1408 Caprice. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, we have done a number of demolitions on properties. This piece of property lays adjacent to a homeowner. It's not really a real good piece of property for a residence. She has requested, made an offer to the township that would really cover in its entirety the cost of the demo. In addition, $500 for any other related fees that we may have to transfer the deed to her. This has been the only phone call that we received over time. She's been trying to get this piece of property for quite a long time, and it's had to go through the process of tax sale and whatever, and finally even the county gave up on it and signed a deed over to White Lake Township. So I believe this may be good to recoup our money, and she is willing to combine this with her other piece of property. So
Very good.
I would
Okay,
move that we consider the sale of the property to Danielle Benzik.
okay, and the amount was for that?
The amount was $7,770.
Okay. Okay, we have the motion, I'm looking for support.
Support.
Motion and support. Question, Mr. Powell?
Could someone tell me, is this north or south of the 1420 Caprice?
I believe it's southeast.
Okay, do we have a Sidwell number for the property? I just have a picture that I printed out, and I don't know if it's to the north
That one.
side of
Nope,
there.
it's to the south side of it.
It's down
Adjacent to
here?
the- See where that boat is?
Oh, yeah, right here. Right here?
Right where the boat is. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is this piece to the north,
Well,
north being up on
correct,
this piece property.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. That's where that house was that we tore down. Well, we ended up getting the property back. What we're doing at this motion, folks, is we're trying to get
Okay.
the money
It's
that
torn right around there.
we all paid here as township residents on this particular piece of land back. It's in a marginal area. It's probably the best use of this. It'll open up the land density a little bit more. That'll end up being a little bit larger lot and open that area up a little bit.
Put it back on the tax
And put it back on the tax roll, and I don't think that thing would pass a perk test for love nor money for a new construction. So this is the best means to getting it off our roster and back on tax roll. I have motion, I have support. All in favor? Oh, I beg your pardon.
What is the motion? Are they authorizing you to enter into a purchase agreement and
Authorized.
also to
Correct.
sign any relevant documents necessary to close on the property?
That's what I heard.
I think that's what we heard.
That's what I heard.
Just checking.
That's what I heard. I say everybody heard it but you.
That was exactly what we said.
Surprised she doubted us.
Did you get that? Okay, I figured. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I have a motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, item F, resolution number 17-004, adjourning public hearing regarding Castlewood sewer connections. Mr. Clerk.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone the creation of a special assessment district for the sewer connections with discussion.
Is that in the form of a motion?
It's resolution 1704.
That would be resolution 17004.
1704. I have a motion. Do I have support?
I'll support the motion.
Motion, support.
I did want to
Yes.
ask discussion.
Please.
As far as the funding for this program, we had discussed two different options. One was bonding this project out. I know when we started talking about this project, we were looking at, I think, 20 to 30 homes. We're now down to 8. So I know Rick and Terry and I had some discussions, and I just want to make sure we're all on board that we would like to continue on with this SAD, but to use PA 188 money due to the exorbitant amount of fees that would be incurred in trying to bond out such a small SAD. So
Yeah, it's not cost effective.
that's all I had to say.
Okay. So I have motion, I have support. Yes.
I guess I just want to understand what's happening now. So you originally passed an intention resolution at the March meeting, which scheduled a public hearing to establish the district for today.
Correct.
The reason you're not moving forward with establishing the district today is because you weren't sure of the financing and the participation.
Correct.
That's correct. We wanted to leave it for board discussion to make that determination.
Just so that you understand, the township board sets the public hearing dates. So if you want to set a public hearing date for next month, then you should add it to paragraph 1 of the resolution setting it so that you can move this forward at the next meeting. Otherwise, at the next meeting, you'll be setting the public hearing at a future date. Unless there's a date in here.
And in my opinion, in reading this, I think that the board is waiting until we receive a few more people that might want to join the SAD. Otherwise, it's not cost effective, and we need to find some other means of helping them.
I just wanted to make sure you understood that the township board sets the public hearing date, and if you don't set it here, you can always set it for the next meeting and then adjourn it again, but then you lose a month once you finally decide. I just wanted to make sure you understood that. However you do it is.
I believe we should.
I think also there was a concern, Mike, because some of the people have already paid in its entirety to be hooked up, and we need to get those people done now. And I understand
Well,
that,
that doesn't slow this down any if
That's
they've already
correct.
paid.
but there's an urgent, we wanted to make that determination where the money was gonna come from, those that wanted to finance, to get them hooked up now,
Yeah.
Right.
then proceed with special assessment.
Mr. Roman?
I know, Mike, you had brought up the idea of going out, sending letters to all those sewer users out there, or people that could hook up to our system to see if
Right.
they're interested. And having some conversations with Aaron Potter, we are getting to the point, but we are not there yet, to where he could actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, use the GIS to actually pinpoint those homes that would possibly want to connect on a sewer. So I don't know that we have a mechanism right now to actually go out and get letters to people that could potentially hook up.
So I'm wondering, I'm sorry to jump in here, I'm just wondering whether or not the SAW grant itself and the assessment project that we've authorized J&A in evaluating our sanitary sewer system, that does not have the means of identifying where our sewers are and who in fact is tied into the sanitary sewer, leaving us with a group of people that have not tied in yet. We don't have the documentation in-house that tells us who's hooked into our sewer and those that are fronting the sanitary sewer?
I think we don't have it immediately available, readily, manually it's available, but not automatically.
Okay.
Now, if you care to volunteer to come in and go through these ledgers we have, I'd be happy to.
I'd rather the computer do it if we can get that up and running.
Well, just to answer the one question you had about the SAW grant, there is GIS that is going to be part of the SAW grant, which is a geographical information system that will allow us to easily identify exact parcels that would be available for immediate connection. Currently, we have Oakland County's paper maps, and we would have to basically, refer to Property Gateway or some of the other programs through Oakland County and compare those with our water system or our sewer system maps to identify the homes. Quite frankly, we just do not have the manpower for that.
Okay, because it would certainly be a win-win to get as many people to agree to tie into our sanitary sewer as we possibly can, both in the environment and in the functioning of the sanitary sewer, so.
Well, to that point, I would just like to add that our staff has been telephone bombing the entire Castlewood neighborhood for months and months and months. We've probably gone through 7 or 8 rounds of phone calls with all those folks to
At
find
least.
out who's interested in connecting, who isn't, and unfortunately, we're as they've mentioned, several people that are serious about connection that had the funds have paid and they're ready to go. We're just waiting for G&A to get the main completed. They're basically going back and forth on the punch list items with Oakland County now. So, we're very, very close on that. As far as the rest of the folks that maybe didn't have the funds available to connect, that would like to be involved in the SAD, the original petition, you correctly stated, was somewhere around 30 people had mentioned that they were possibly interested in it. And unfortunately, now that we're getting close to talking turkey, we're down to 8.
Okay.
So it's, I just don't know how much more our folks in our office could do to.
And I guess I'm
get a hold
certainly
of
not
people.
just counting on Castlewood. I mean, every resident in the township that fronts on a sanitary sewer ought to be asked, if we help you, do you want to tie in? And so that's where I'm.
I think once we have our GIS in place, I think we're going to take and mount a campaign.
That would be great.
A little bit different, but in this particular case, we want to try to get these people on, and if we prolong this any longer, it's just going to make it more difficult for them.
Absolutely
So
correct.
That's where that
Okay.
stands.
Thank you.
Do we want to set an alternate date for next month's meeting, just to have for the record?
I don't know if there's any urgency at this point, but whatever you
No, I
think
don't
we
think
should
so.
do.
No, I'm
All right.
Why don't we have the motion amended to add the date for the
I
next
think that
public
would be
hearing?
wise.
Yeah,
We
just
have
put it
nothing
on.
to lose.
May 16th. You can always.
I know it'll be May 20.
We change that
We
one?
change it, yeah.
23rd?
What's the Tuesday? The 15th, 22nd, May 22nd.
I
By
think the
22?
I think the 16th.
May 23rd is a Tuesday.
May 23rd.
Oh, I beg your pardon. 20. Thank you.
That's it.
That was close. No one would have been there. Okay.
So in paragraph 1 then, where it says shall be adjourned, just add to May 23rd, 2017 at 7:00 p.m.
Gary, is it okay to amend the motion that way?
I will amend my motion to reflect Lisa's
Amy, do you have
recommendation.
that? You have it? Okay. We have it. It has been amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so. I beg your pardon? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, real quick, you mentioned Auto 8771 Townsend Drive. The question I have is, okay, I've been through all these Castlewood discussions and all the people. So now that you're down at 8, what happens to all the funding of the main and all that? Where does the money, these people want to hook up with, who's on the hook to pay for it?
Okay. There's 2 different types of assessments here. One was for the installation of the pipe in the ground.
Right, okay,
That is ongoing. That's being paid for.
okay.
So that you don't need to worry about. By the people in the neighborhoods.
Okay, so
That-
the 8
that's-
people or the 30 people?
No,
About
anyone that a
100
pipe is in
about
front of their
100
house, okay, is paying for it. This is a tap-in assessment.
Oh, okay, the tap.
This is to get you from the house
Okay.
to the main. That's what all this was.
I didn't
Yeah,
understand.
and there are multiple people that are already going to be going on the system. Some of them have come in and just paid up front for it. So that's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of users on it. This was just a group that we were trying to put together as a convenience and a benefit for the public safety and welfare of the community to have this available to them as a financial means to hook up to the
I
system.
think it's 1:30, I just didn't know what, I know
But
there's the main
did-
and then there was the tap, but I
okay.
didn't know what this all
Are you clear as mud now?
For me it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, moving on. We have item G. Chief, I think you're gonna talk to us maybe a little bit about this. This is the resolution number 17-005, agreements with Oakland County net overtime agreements. And Chief, would you care to elaborate as to what net is and what it's all about?
That is, narcotics enforcement team. It's run by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. They run the program. It's out of their office in the Ponic area, and they run I want to say 3 or 4 teams of 6 or 7 individuals. It has a sergeant attached to each team, and they go out throughout the Metro Detroit area, and they get leads, and when they get the leads, they follow through with them, and then they make whatever necessary arrests or seizures that they need to do. It's paid for. What happens is we supply a guy, we supply an officer detective to the net team, and he's placed on a team, and we get drug forfeiture money back from that. We don't ever get enough to support that officer, and that's not why we put them in there. It's nice to get some money back, but it's more important that he's in our community following up on drug dealers and people who have illegal grow operations and whatnot, so we can keep the community safe, and that's why we have them in there. If we wanted the money, we would just assign them to DEA in Detroit, where they get much more money, quite honestly, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that any leads that we have, and we often get them off of, we arrest individuals for small amounts of marijuana or for driving while license suspended or warrants, and every officer asks, hey, you want to work with our net guy? And some do, some don't. We've had several that have worked out to bigger operations that we've busted and wouldn't have it if we didn't have the opportunity to be in the net program. These what these 2 agreements are. One is the first one is the high intensity drug trafficking area, and the federal government has put Oakland County in that area. Southeast Michigan is that area, and there's numerous areas throughout the United States that get this. And what NET did was applied for a grant for the funding, and they received the funding. The grant was awarded, and our officer gets $4,333 from that grant. So instead of the township or the police department paying for that, his overtime, which he does anyway, that's part of his job, we get that money to pay for his overtime. And the other one is the medical marijuana oversight grant, and that's not for. The concern with that, and talking with that guy, that's not to go out and bust down people are doing what they're supposed to be doing legally. It's for compliance and education. So if we see or we get tips on individuals or operations that we don't know if they're legal, we'll go in, we'll knock on the door and say, hey, show us your stuff, see what you got, make sure everything's legal. If it's not, then we take action. If it is,
Can you speak into the mic if you would?
I'm sorry. If it's legal, they're good. Everybody's compliant, and if it's not, then we take action. And again, that grant will give us $7,144 out of money that we would be spending anyway. So that's a total of about $11,477 that we're going to get to pay for the overtime for the net officer.
So, any questions from the board?
Great program. Just to be clear, the exhibits aren't attached in your copy. The chief didn't want to waste all that paper, but you have them if anybody wants to see them.
Yes, thank you.
They're sample documents, essentially, what they have to submit to get reimbursed, and the agreement between the county and the state.
Okay, yes.
Just curious, so the motion would be to have the clerk sign the resolution, and Chief, who would sign these agreements?
Supervisor.
Mr. Kowal?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so I'll put that in the form of a motion, allow the supervisor to sign the medical marijuana, as well as the drug trafficking agreements, and to allow the clerk to sign resolution 17-005.
I have a motion, looking for support? Support. I have support. Any further conversation? All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Next up, we have item 10H, Johnson and Anderson's proposal for our WAMP plan, which is more commonly known as the Water Asset Management Plan. And I will let Mr. Aaron Potter start with this a little bit. You wanna? Okay, well, all right. We'll go right to you then,
Sure,
okay.
would you like an
Mr.
introduction to this and the reason to do it and so forth?
Yes, I think the public would like to
Okay,
kind of have an outline of what it's all
First of
about.
all, I need to apologize.
This
to
is
the-
Terry Bramer.
Thank you, Terry Bramer with Johnson and Anderson. I need to apologize to the board. If you'll see in the first paragraph, I have a sentence in here. Please see the attached communication from MDEQ requiring the township to prepare this document. And I omitted including that document. But basically, this is from Public Act 399, the Safe Drinking Water Act, Section 16. So what this proposal does is it mirrors the requirements that are outlined. And I'm not gonna read the proposal, nor am I gonna read the requirements, but I'll tell you some of the highlights. The township's required to do a summary detailing the system used to maintain an inventory of assets. Priority shall be given to an inventory of source, treatment, pumping, and distribution system assets. Then a summary describing the method used to assess the criticality of assets, considering the likelihood and consequence of failures. A statement of level of service goals. Item D is the preparation of a capital improvement plan. And if you'll recall, back last summer, we completed a review of all your well houses and other appurtenances. That's, I think, one reason why we're purporting that this can be done for not as much as it would have. Then a summary detailing the funding structure. If you'll notice in the document, there's two prices in there. One is for the services provided by J&A, which is $28,880, and the other is for a financial plan or a rate study to be prepared by others. We have used the Umba company, which I believe has done great work for the township before. And that's sort of it in a nutshell. If I can answer any questions related to the requirements to do this. Basically, this plan is supposed to be done and on file by December 31st of 2017.
Okay, and as the public may or may not know, and if you don't know, you've had your head on a bottle somewhere, that the DEQ has now made water quality a very high issue and is putting a lot of these mandates towards multiple communities throughout the state that have water systems, and us being one of them.
If
Yes?
I may, sir, this is an unfunded mandate.
It is unfunded,
When I
yes.
say that, it's a requirement that
Yeah.
the
And they're not giving us.
DEQ is imposing, unlike the, I would conjecture to say that this is a function of the situation in Flint and requiring communities to get a handle on all their water system assets. As you know, you folks recently approved a SAW grant, which is basically an asset management plan for your sanitary sewers. That is partially funded by the state, approximately 90%. This one is not.
Yeah. And unfunded,
So-
unfortunately, we still have to comply with it.
If I may, a little bit more background, just, so we have a community similar to yourself that's very fiscally conscious, as we can see by your audit. You guys did a great job on that. So this community says, what if we don't do it? What are they gonna do to us? So we could not get anything in writing from MDEQ. But what they inferred, and again, they would not put this in writing, but they inferred, you have a WSSN number, correct, Aaron? That's basically your permit to operate?
It's our water system serial number.
So it would be very difficult for you to get that renewed. In addition, you folks are in a pro-growth mode, so you're going to want to get permits to extend water mains. Were you not to put this on file, that may put that situation in peril.
Correct.
And again, they won't go on the record, but that's what they've inferred.
So we need to do it. Okay, any questions from the board? Mr. Powell?
I was wondering, the DEQ comes out with a great deal of mandates, and I don't know if any of them, well, some of them are, I don't know if this one has been approved by the legislature or not. And I didn't know if the supervisor might contact a couple of our legislatures and find out whether or not they know that the MDEQ is mandating this to all communities, because it is an unfunded mandate, and that has been frowned upon by previous legislators. That being said, I had a question, Terry, if you could. Obviously, you guys are going to be going out, if you haven't already, and identifying and placing our sanitary sewer assets in the GIS system.
Yes.
Typically, the water main follows a great deal of the sanitary sewer areas. I noticed in your contract here, it does not include any GIS services.
If I may?
Yes, by all means.
Yes, the board had great foresight previously and authorized us to do an inventory of all your assets. So what that included was GISing all of the gate wells, hydrants, and valve stops in your community.
Okay.
So that's why that task is not in there.
Okay.
And it's, we feel, reduced the cost of this plan. We have a similar community that we're doing this for, and we have to do all that in their community. It's approximately $47,000. So that saved you probably $20,000 to $25,000 off of what you would have had to spend to do this.
And despite the fact that I'm a little disappointed that the DEQ is reaching out and giving us mandates that are unfunded by them, I'm a major supporter of a project like this. The township should know what our assets are and the quality of all our assets as part of the water system. I'm just wondering if Mr. Lilly or Mr. Roman might not be able to let me know, is this within budgeted funds, or do we have to make a budget amendment, and where do we stand on the water budget for this year? This is another $44,000.
It would probably be a Terry question as far as the budget goes.
All right.
I think you've heard this from me a number of times, that we have to be concerned about moving forward into making sure that we're not digging in too much of our fund equity within water. But I think right now we're within a range that we don't have to be concerned about depleting. But when we're talking about some of these other projects, iron infiltration for the other plant, we're talking about maybe extending water main or whatever, then we're going to have to talk very seriously about where we're at.
Okay.
Mr. Potter?
That would be my opinion at this point.
I just wanted to comment that we had roughly $400,000 fund balance in our operating fund at the end of last year. And that, you know, we planned on doing a budget amendment anyway, because as we all know, I added 2 employees to our staff that, you know, we previously didn't have. So I would recommend that we do a budget amendment anyway and incorporate all those changes, including this, into it. You know, just I'd like to make one quick comment back to Plant Moran, what they were talking about, Public Act 530. It seems like planning is kind of the theme of the day tonight. So they were talking about retiree health care to make sure that we're properly funding all that. This plan, and as well as the SAW grant, you know, not only does it identify and actually rate the condition of our assets, and I'm not talking about our assets as in our vehicles or you know, our little accessory pumps and things like that, but we're talking about, you know, our water mains, our wells, our water wells. The average water well, you know, to drill a new one the size of the wells that we have is roughly $300,000 a piece. To not do this, I think, would be a great disservice to us. Following this plan will give us not only an assessment of the real condition of our system, but put us on track to make sure that our funding is in line with the needs that we discussed from that.
Okay.
No other discussion. I will make a motion to approve GNA project number 18351.
Mr. Rome?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. I just had a couple of questions for Terry, if I could.
Just for a second, I'll support that, and then under discussion.
For discussion, yeah.
For discussion.
That's great.
So go ahead.
Motion,
Sure.
support, discussion.
Terry, so I think the quote was $43,880
Yes, sir.
for this project. Do you have any contingencies built into that number?
We're not thinking that we need any.
Okay, so if this
We're
process takes longer than you're thinking.
If I may, we're
Yeah.
confident of the scope, and there's a finite term. It has to be completed by December 31st.
Okay,
Okay? And
good enough.
this is probably the 6th or 7th one of these we're doing.
Okay.
We currently have them underway all the way from Muskegon to Port Huron, and now points in between.
Thanks.
So,
Any other further discussion, questions? Okay. I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Okay, another Johnson and Anderson. We have item 10I, engineering agreement amendment for the Village Acres Water Treatment Ire Removal Design and Construction Engineering.
I'm willing to make a motion to amend the JNA file number 17489 with an additional amount to the contract of $32,500.
Motion, looking for support. We'll move it along. I will support it. Okay? All right. With discussion? Mr. Roman.
Thanks, Rick. Terry, boy, I hate to point fingers. I've never been a finger pointer. But I just want to tell you, I'm a numbers guy. I so respect your engineering capabilities and the work you do for us. But I've got an overall feeling of disappointment when I look at the number that we're spending on engineering fees for this project. I guess the school where I came from, when someone gives us a cost, that's pretty much what it should be. And when something takes longer than it expected, where I grew up, you get a discount. You don't pay more. Now, look, I understand there were changes made, and I understand there was delays that took place. But personally, I was kind of shocked when I saw the number on top of $191,000. So with that, if I understand what you're asking for another $32,500. And I think what you're saying is roughly $24,000 of that has already been spent on services December 16th through March 17th.
I would say approximately January through current.
Okay, January through current.
Yes, sir.
And so is the balance of what you're asking for future work to finish off the project?
If I may?
Yeah.
Let me give you a little bit more background to the board here. So, the project that we're dealing with is obviously the iron filtration unit for Village Acres. So we put out bids for that and awarded it to a contractor, Reliance Building Construction. So they had difficulties getting the backwash tank approved and then shipped. And I thought we communicated all those issues at the regular progress meetings.
You did.
Okay, so from our standpoint, there was nothing that we felt that we did improper that would cause the contract to be extended. It was a function of the contractor and the supplier that he used. From your standpoint, as the township, what did you do to cause this to go past the completion date? The initial completion date, I believe, was in September of 2016. The final completion date was in November. We had budgeted our funds, if you remember from the progress meetings, and I would, we would go around at the end of the meeting and does anybody have any comments? And my comment was that if we extend this contract, then J&A does not have monies past December. So we had budgeted enough money to do a startup in November and December, but not 4 or 5 months later. So, if I may, the contractor presented this situation on November 29th. Congratulations, Mr. Kowal's first meeting. The contractor presented this, was subsequently granted a time extension by change order. Perhaps we should have, maybe if we were guilty of anything, we should have consulted with you folks and said, okay, what remedies do we have to recoup any of this? So the remedy would have been to charge the contractor liquidated damages. So I thought we were all in agreement that he had provided sufficient documentation at that time in the form of a letter, and then that letter was subsequently turned into a change order extending the completion date from November to May 1st. And I think the project, it's going to be a great project. I think you'll be making water by the end of the week.
You're close, yeah.
Yeah, so,
We'll be pumping some water
so
tomorrow.
they've met that subsequent deadline. I guess the thing is, we don't feel that there were any actions that we took that were negligent and that caused this delay.
Okay, if I may finish up, Mr. Supervisor, I understood the delay with the tank, but I would have thought that the services that you provide, just because there was a delay with the tank, I'd almost think that that would delay your services as well. And maybe I'm incorrect.
If I may, Mr. Treasurer, it doesn't
Yes.
work that way.
Okay.
So there were always activities going on. Maybe not as fast as Mr. Lilly would have liked, because he brought that up at every meeting. But there were always activities going on. There was always progress meetings going on. Progress meetings were doubled up from 1 a month to 2 a month, so everybody would know what was going on and what the status of the deliveries were. So I'm hoping you're doing, as a board, ask us to eat this, because I think that you got value. If we were guilty of anything else, we probably undervalued our contract amount in the first place.
The original bid?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and Mike knows this, he's been in this business a long time. The total fee for engineering services is approximately 8%. It should have been probably 10, 11, 12%. And that was shame on us. We should have, we budgeted for everything to go perfect, and it didn't.
Okay. Terry, are you confident that what you're asking for is going to cover everything on this project?
Do you think I want to come back here again?
I,
So yes,
Well,
I'm confident.
okay,
that-
and the reason I ask is I kind of feel like we've got an open checkbook.
No, well.
And as a trustee to the township, it's just not a comforting feeling.
Well, I don't think we've comported ourselves that way with an open checkbook. I tried to keep the board, or at least the three electeds, informed at every progress meeting. You remember, we go around the room and I say, they've got a contract extension, and I didn't know what it was gonna be, so I didn't try to come up with a number in December and then not have it.
Okay, Terry, are your fees on this project from the old fee schedule that was
Yes,
attached to the,
yes,
okay.
yes.
And then just one more question for you, if I may. Eventually, White Lake Township is seriously considering constructing a second iron filtration
Right.
plant on the northwest end of our water system. What, if anything, should we be doing different to minimize?
If I may.
Yeah.
there's been a lot of changes here, as I think you all know. There's been changes in staff and personnel. So we were directed to use a process. That would not have been the process that we selected.
Okay.
So I think that would be the first thing. We would probably do a much more user-friendly process. I think one that Mr. Potter is more familiar with, that's been employed in Waterford. I think that would make it go somewhat smoother, and that's the way we would propose to start that out.
Okay. I'm all set. Rick, thanks.
Mr. Clerk? Mr. Powell?
When you said process, do you mean the process of construction or the process of the iron removal?
The process of the iron removal.
So a totally different process.
Yes, sir.
And who instructed?
If I may, if it was
Yes.
the current water treatment operator.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
previous.
Previous, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Potter.
All right, yes, thank you.
Previous, yes.
It was a design that he felt he was familiar and comfortable with, but
Right.
not necessarily the most up-to-date design or method.
If I may, are some of the
They all work. They all.
Oh, they all work,
Yeah.
but the new technologies are, it's just like you buy a computer. In 3 years, that computer is a dinosaur. And as the things progress, the technologies change and everything becomes a little tweaked.
And so.
Change your way of chlorination, for
You know,
example.
for instance, if you can save a few gallons here and there on your backwash cycles and times and get longer run times out of your filters, it saves you a tremendous amount of money.
Sure. That's a
And I
very
think,
good system.
You're fairly familiar with
The chlorination process of the Ferrozua process is what Jerry's referring
right.
to. Uses basically iron bacteria grown inside of a bioreactor to, through an enzyme process, filters out iron as a nutrient. It's extremely efficient. We had 3 of those plants in Waterford, producing upwards of almost 8 million gallons per day of capacity. They are extremely efficient both in chemical use and in operation, in heating and cooling of the plant.
in backwash water.
Backwash water is
Right.
extremely low.
I-
Very good
So
process.
without getting into,
Yeah, I don't think we have to anticipate what the next one's going to be, because we're just talking about this here, and
Yes,
we'll talk
right,
about that in the next one. I think where Mike was, the treasurer was referring to, we will probably handle at least be deciding how to handle the bidding out of the next plant maybe a little differently than we did this time, to prevent this from happening again.
I'd like to add one more comment to that. This project had no contingency, which is fairly unusual for a project of this size. My recommendation on the next project, the next large project that we do, is to make sure that we have contingency there to cover some of these unforeseen expenses that pop up. Typically that's 10%.
If I may,
of the
it's
project this size.
probably, like if you did a DEQ revolving loan fund, their contingency is 6%. So when we get done with this project, and actually, if you look at our budget right now, we are below the bid price right now. There's gonna be change orders coming. They'll probably come to you folks, but right now, we're still below. We've had more deductions than we've had additions. Okay, so I think all in all, when you're at this juncture of a project that's $2.379 million, and you're getting ready to do startup, completing startup, and you're still below your bid price, I think we've done a pretty good job of managing it.
Yeah, that's one of the comments that I was going to bring out. We're actually well within our actual projected budget, and I think even if you had some of the potential changes, and we might be within 3% on that type of
pretty
project.
close.
That's
Real close.
Real close.
We've actually done that projection.
yeah, that's the projection that
And I just had 2 more questions, Mr. Supervisor. One, what was the time frame of the extension needed for the backwash tank?
5 months.
5 months
Yeah.
lead time?
If I may,
Yes.
there were 2 conditions that added to the problems. First of all was getting a backwash tank design approved. They submitted one design, it was not approved. They submitted another design, and they were trying to do it first of all in panels, then they were gonna pour it in place, and then they ultimately went back to doing it in panels, but in smaller sizes. So the contractor was confident that once that was approved and returned to the supplier, that it was under construction and would be delivered in a timely fashion. It was not delivered in a timely fashion.
Okay, and then the next question I have, does our contract with the contractor, does it specifically have liquidated damages in there?
It does. So it has a sliding scale for liquidated damages. I think it would be difficult at this time to collect on them because we've already granted them by change order a extension of time to May 1st.
May 1st.
Yes. But were we to do that, the size of this project would have warranted $800 a day in liquidated damages.
Okay.
So if you're doing the math in your head, that would have been just north of $100,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Clark?
I'd just like to make a couple comments and really about the situation, particularly with J&A, that we have consistently said in meetings month after month after month since this project started. And I don't think that I can say for myself, and as you indicated, back in November, December, it really got disgusted with the contractor because this has taken so long. In fact, there were some of the meetings I didn't even attend because I was so upset about this thing. But the bottom line is we all knew that this was coming. We all had input into those monthly meetings, and we all decided because of the urgency to move ahead with this project. And particularly when Aaron came on. I don't think we were in the best position to start managing iron infiltration plant with not having a director, and particularly with Aaron coming on, it's like the expert finally arrived that he can start giving us some insight of what he felt was needed, and it's been probably the best thing that happened to White Lake Township is getting Aaron from Waterford. But I gotta say, it's not a surprise to me, sitting in on those meetings and what you presented, that this is any big surprise that came up in the last month or so. We could see this coming as a project, and we agreed to extend the project to get this thing done. So I found it very easy to call Terry on occasion and discuss money situations, whatever. I think they've been great for White Lake Township. I think there's been times that they have gave us the benefit of the doubt and ate a little bit on projects. So I'm not surprised at all that this came before the board tonight. And I just, in their defense, I don't think this was a problem of J&A. I think it was more from the contractor perspective, but hey, we're under budget as of right now. It looks like we're not gonna be far over budget, even if we are a little bit. It's been a great experience. I think once we get done with the plan and operation and get away from some of the iron issues that we've had in the last couple of weeks, that this is gonna be a great experience. I'd like to say again, I thank Aaron for being on board. I think he's gonna put us in the right direction, and we're not gonna have these issues that we're going to sit up here and debate as township clerk, treasurer, supervisor, and trustees, that this man's going to lead the way. So I'm confident that Aaron's going to do that, and we're not going to have these problems in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. And my comments would be that it's been my experience in my 40 years of construction industry. I can count on maybe 2 fingers all and the hundreds of millions of dollars of projects that I've participated in that projects have really come in on time, on budget. Very few of them come in at budget or even at 3% near budget. Most of them have anywhere from 7 to 10% contingencies on them. And frankly, most of the time those contingencies are eaten up, and sometimes I've seen people have to retrieve additional funds. It's not something that we want to do. We probably be mindful of our money, but I think the simple fact that they worked with us through some value engineering during the process, and when some changes were made, and as you heard, there were some reductions in cost because they were aware that these redesigns, as you're in the field and applications of those designs, would result in a savings. So every attempt was made on their part to keep the township's best interest at heart. It's no great reflection on them if a job takes too long and they go way over budget. So their best interest was to move it along, keep it moving. We did have a change in personnel during the process. There was a lot of turmoil in the water department during this. I'm very pleased that it's gone as smooth as it has. And I myself feel that the time frame that the vessels were not delivered, and we had other setbacks, there still was some work going on that did require their oversight, so they were present on the facility. It's not like the job just stood dead in the water. So there was always something going on. So that being said, I believe that they're looking out for our best interest, and I sincerely hope that, we continue this relationship, and also that you continue to look out for our dollars as a community. Okay? So, that being said, I'm looking for a motion.
We have a motion and support, Mr. Supervisor.
We do have motion and support. I beg your pardon. That's right. I supported it myself. See, I'm getting tired. Okay. I have motion. I have support. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the trust that you put in us, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Next item is item J on our agenda. It's a resolution 17006. Mr. Clerk?
Do we have copies of that resolution?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you have a copy?
I do not.
You want this copy?
I would just note on the next page.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd be happy to make this resolution 17-006. This will give the Township Board, will give the Township Supervisor, upon vote of the Township Board, to purchase the property that we've been dealing with for probably at least a good 20 years in that area, which will be our vocal point of White Lake Township, and just the beginning of maybe some necessary needed improvements that we need to take. So, make a motion to approve 17-006.
I have a motion. Looking for support? Support. I have a motion. I have support. Any questions? Mr. Roman?
Just a question for Lisa. Will this cover any pro rata taxes that we'd have to pay?
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the
It's all
closing.
part
It
of
would be in the
closing.
closing package.
Okay, so we're good?
Yeah.
And-
Powell.
yeah, and certainly I have a statement. I have been on the board a sufficient number of years that I've had residents come up to me and say, when is the township going to do something that improves the township hall? And this is by far the best approach for us to take instead of renovating this place. And so I'm very much in favor of purchasing this property.
Thank you. So motion, Mr. Clerk?
I'd also note for the record, when we're talking about probably $1.6 million piece of property, or $1.7 million. And just for the benefit of the residents, that we were able to sell 2 pieces of property at White Lake, the Porter Road Farm that we had previously, almost $400,000 that we retrieved off the Porter Road sale, and also the property across the street from Myers that was sold to a development, $800 and some thousand. So we've been able to have property to sell. We're not taking $1.6 million out of our fund equity at this point. I think we've made a great decision for the future of White Lake.
With that, I will make.
just wanted to
Yes.
point out a typo, all my fault, on the second page, paragraph 3. It says city, should say township. I apologize for that.
Did I get a credit on the bill for that?
No. Nice try.
I'm trying, Terry. I really am.
We have a motion.
We have motion. We have support. All in favor?
I think we need to have a roll call vote, Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah, we can do roll call vote. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Mike Powell?
Yes.
Andrea Voorhees?
Yes.
Liz Smith?
Yes.
The yeses have it. With that being said, I'd like to make a quick comment on that, and that would be that I think this is for the future of the township, and I think that the citizens that live in this community are deserving of such. And as we look at this tired old horse of a building here, that there's no one alive that when this building was built that I could find in the township yet. I don't know. So I'd ask that question.
My dad will be 87 on May 7th.
I don't think when this was completely built, though. I think it was pre-existing.
Yeah, I still have memories in the treasurer's office.
Well, pre-exist the ultimate very first
Oh,
thing,
yeah,
not this
they're-
hall,
they're
the very,
long.
very
Well, that's-
first
he's still
structure.
got-
Been a very young man.
Yeah, there we go. He's been a very young man. So, as this has served the township well for its years, and we have had a tremendous amount of great progress in this community. This is part of it. It's part of the inevitable change that comes along in life. And we just need to adapt to that change and realize that this will be ultimately a change for the good. Are we going to run out tomorrow and do anything? No, we're going to think this through. We're going to have a well-plotted course of action that will be the best benefit of the township, and ultimately will give everyone a very, very nice place to go to and become unto itself a destination. So I'd like to thank all the people that have supported the board and all the people of the township that have supported us in pursuing this endeavor. And it's very important that you continue that role of support in the future. So thank you. So.
Got one more item, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes, I know, and I'm looking for my agenda because it went to the bottom of the pile. Okay.
Question?
Okay, we have.
Question back here.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what the total cost of the complex would be?
Not at this time.
Okay. How much land do you have right here, acreage?
We have about 13 acres.
And down there, you're 26?
26.02
Okay, thanks.
total. There's some parkland that'll be part of it, and that's also part of our plan to expand that. So, okay, let's see. We have, I guess, Mr. Hankus has his moment that he can discuss the board. Am I correct at this moment in time? The last thing on the
Yes, the last thing on
agenda
the
prior
item
to our comments.
Yes, and I really wanted to give Mr. Is it Hankies?
Hankus. Yes.
Hankus. Due time to represent himself if he had anything else to say, but he has been very diligent in contacting each one of us. He has certainly spent money on his project and his property. Each one of us have pulled building, well, most of us have pulled building permits here in this township, and none of us have received any free building permits, and we've had to pay all our fees, whether or not we felt they were justified or not. And so I wanted you to give us one last representation as to why you believe that you should receive any refund, knowing that I certainly hope that we don't receive any more emails from you requesting refunds after tonight. And so you stated that $200 for an occupancy inspection. I believe that's a fairly standard process here in the township.
It's not required.
It obviously was required when it was done for you, right?
Well, it was required illegally.
Okay, we're not gonna judge that one, but you received a service from the township for that work.
Yes.
Or for that funds. And then the $736 that you have in your presentation here was for a building permit?
That's correct.
Was it? And so you received something of value from the township for that money?
I absolutely did.
Okay.
And I'm not questioning that. What I was asking for consideration is that, first of all, the occupancy permit, although it hasn't been proved illegally, you know, last year I sent you guys, everybody on the board, I appeared before this board numerous times, presenting law that what had been asked of me by these two people was illegal. That law was never reviewed. I was promised by Rick Howell that he would get a second legal opinion on that law, never did. So we're still back with, you know, definitely the law was misrepresented by Lisa Hammack, and, you know, the United States Department of Justice found that in the criminal division, and the U.S. District Attorney both agreed that this was misrepresentation of the law and obstruction of justice. So I was asking for a little favor because I have been deeply penalized by this conspiracy.
Okay, I appear before boards all over southeast Michigan, and certainly residents think that they've been wronged by communities all the time, and they throw out illegal, they were treated illegally, misrepresented, the FBI's involved, and so we can't, as a board, take a homeowner's or a business owner's statement of saying the township acted illegally. We rely on our staff and our administration and our legal counsel. Otherwise, we'd be doing nothing but refunding money and saying, here. So the FBI never approached this board, never presented any documentation to us, and so we have nothing at all to go on except for the fact that you received a benefit for the services from the township. And in my opinion, you need to go forward instead of backward. Otherwise, you won't get anything done. And so my suggestion, and when we get done discussing this, I'll be making a motion. Certainly, we need to look forward instead of always looking backward for how we were wronged. And so I'm going to stop talking now and see if any of my colleagues on the board have anything else to
Mr. Robin?
Well, I just wanted to say, Mr. Hankus, you had mentioned that Mr. Colwell promised to do something. He did ask me to look at the ordinance, and I think I'd gotten back with you and told you that I looked at the ordinance, and my interpretation was totally in agreement with what Mr. O'Neill and our township
Well, first of all,
lawyer
Mr. O'Neill has
mentioned.
absolutely no jurisdiction inside of a building. That is the building.
Okay, Doug, Mr. Hankus, we're getting to the point here. We're not who does what. We're talking about the fees.
Right.
Remain on subject and on target, please. Okay?
Yeah, it's not, I'm not asking you to make accusations against any official.
And also Mike Roman said, I don't know, I'm not a legal representative, I am the treasurer. So, you know, that's just my opinion. Which
The right response would be for you to hire an attorney and file a lawsuit against the township and have a judge determine that. But until and unless that happens, we highly respect our staff here and our legal counsel, and we will support them until some judge tells us not to. And so I wanted to make sure that you understood that we wanted to air your grievance, and we responded to you other than just on the side. I also wanted to point out something that you put in your email, and I think it's extremely critical, and I think our attorney will be very happy with me that I said this. You gave us an option of either putting you on the board or putting you on an agenda item, or we could just all email each other and come up with a decision. We can't do that. That's a breaking of the Opens Meeting Act, and we do not discuss things via email or private groups or anything like that. That's one of the main reasons I made a motion to allow you to appeal directly to us and allow us to make a statement to you, because we cannot collude with each other behind the scenes.
Okay.
So is there anything else that you'd like to state?
No.
Okay.
Got it from
Any of my other colleagues before I make a motion?
Mr. Clerk? I know that you wanted to hear from him tonight, and I'm glad we had an opportunity. I'm not sure, we're talking about fees and services.
Right.
And I'm not so sure that I personally am at that point to talk about services that were provided without the opportunity to talk to the people that issued this permit. And I would feel more comfortable to have an opportunity to talk to those and put this on the next agenda for a decision. But I'm only speaking from myself.
Well, the reason why I brought this up, and Mr. Yankees has actually agreed that he received a service for the fees that were charged. And so I don't want to get into this. I don't want you to go and talk to other staff members and find out what they did. I was really looking to air this tonight, and so that being said, I'd like to make a motion to not approve any refund of any fees paid by Mr. Doug Yankus on his property.
As a
Vote
form of
accordingly. I
motion?
just want to express my opinion.
Well, my only question is I think when we amended the agenda, we said it would be discussion only.
Oh.
So is it proper to actually vote on it?
I think since we're at a full board here, I think we can
And
do
you
that.
added it to the agenda.
We added?
Yes, we did.
Yes, so we're, okay, then I'll support your motion.
A motion and a support. Any discussion?
I just have a question for Mr. Hankus.
Mr. Hankus?
Doug, other than that, are you ready to, is there anything else you need from the township to actually start your construction?
No,
Okay.
absolutely.
Awesome.
We've been at it.
I just wanted to make sure you were,
Good, that was a
you
great
had
question.
everything else you
Just
needed.
asking. you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your tip on the FBI.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll see where that
Motion,
goes.
support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll say no, for the reasons that I stated before.
Okay, very good. Moving on to trustee comments. Andrea Voorhees.
We are in the process, and Sean, I need some of your help, in the process of starting a 5-year master plan for Parks and Rec. We, through the planning department, have just started a Survey Monkey questionnaire. I just got the first one today. Is they want us to approve some of the language and see what we thought of it, and eventually it's going to be finalized. Correct, Sean?
I'm sorry, what was that?
It'll be finalized.
Yes, the plan is to go live with that survey next week.
Okay.
So we renewed our subscription to SurveyMonkey, which is I think they charge us $26 a month, and we're going to have it up for 2 months. I think we had 272 replies or participants last time, which is surprising as it sounds. That was like an earth-shattering record for responses 5 years ago. With Facebook and some of the other social media, our hope is that we can reach more people and get more feedback this time. So we're hoping we're at several hundred instead of just a couple hundred this time. So it has been piloted by the Parks and Rec Committee and the staff just to make sure that it's operating
Right. Okay. Yeah.
properly and everything's going smooth
So,
so far.
and if you're so lucky to be in my inbox or I have your email address, I know there's a couple people in the audience that I do have their emails. I will forward you the link to encourage you. Early as you're one of them, Greg, you're number 2. That you'll get that Survey Monkey link, and I'll ask you to fill out the survey for us.
I believe your meeting is Wednesday, May 10th, and you're
Yes,
going to
that sounds
have a public visioning session.
Yep, thank you.
On that date, and I don't know that the location's been nailed down, but it's either here
I'm
or
pretty sure.
Dublin.
Hang on.
I think it's here.
I was said it was Dublin. So let me check. I'm sure it's on my phone. Hang on.
And I'm sorry, we've been having so many meetings all over the place
No,
lately.
you're good. I agree.
But it is on May 10th, and that agenda will be posted and sent out in the usual way.
I still have the township address, but I'm pretty sure it's Dublin. But
It was 5 years ago, and that was a good
Mhm.
space for it, so we'll definitely try to get that again.
and I'm all set.
Very good. Ms. Smith, can you tell us about the library today?
Of course I can. So I had a great conversation with Larry yesterday, and the library had a special board meeting on April 6th where they interviewed, whittled down architects and interviewed architects and chose a firm to get started. So that's very exciting. They're not quite there yet for the plans because the library board does not meet again until Wednesday, April 26th at 6:45 p.m. So they haven't moved forward with the architect yet, but it has been chosen. Anything else, Larry, that you wanted me to mention?
No, we closed on the property the day after.
Oh, that's right.
So,
yeah,
we're moving along, just like you guys.
So the library property, I don't know if everyone can hear Larry, he said the library property is now closed and the library and the new municipal complex will be neighbors. So that's pretty exciting. And I would like to thank the library board, the previous board, for being very futuristic and taking this big step forward for the library, which then left this great opportunity for the township to be neighbors and all of us to be in one spot for the benefit of our residents. And of course want to thank this board for working together and accomplishing this great task that our community has been looking forward to for, I think they said 20 plus years of building a new complex. I do want to take a moment during my trustee comments for the record, and I want to read a statement so that our community is clear, because I'm going to stand my ground on this topic, and that all children and families in our community are protected and not bullied. In fact, Channel 4 did a great series yesterday and today on the same topic, a 4-part series yesterday and today. I encourage you to watch it. I was on at 4, 5, and 6 and 11 p.m. last night. Because food allergies are such an becoming a magnitude of a problem in our schools, and bullying is also becoming a problem within our own community, unfortunately, to children that are have food allergies. So I just want to take a moment and read my statement. A recent issue was brought to this board, and it's last month, and though it was not appropriate venue, and I would not normally respond to such a vicious, false allegation, I do believe they're just merely politically motivated by someone we may all know. It gives me an opportunity to respond and speak to a very important issue. I am a very passionate and competent child advocate and senior advocate on my own personal time, unrelated to my township duties. I have spent countless hours for years with no fanfare in attempting to protect the rights of those who often have no voice, our children and our seniors, and those with disabilities and needs of protection. I am proud to advocate for life at all ages, all stages. I've raised a foster child from toddler age with severe medical and educational disabilities, and I'm very proud to say she'll be graduating this year. I have a family member who struggles with disabilities from birth, and I watch how others mistreat and deny their rights. I've worked on many senior issues in nursing homes where neglect and lack of care would break your heart. This can be very heart-wrenching as one witnesses many indecencies and harm that should not be bestowed on these individuals. It can also be rewarding when you can right a wrong or restore rights of others and see protections put back in place. As recent, I've been working very hard to try to protect a young little girl who has severe life-threatening food allergies in a local school district. I wish to note that 4 out of 5 of the districts we serve in our community do a good job in dealing with this issue. One school community has been difficult and non-compliant in the opinion of parents and others. I work and collaborate with other advocacy agencies, child advocates, civil rights authorities, and U.S. Department of Education. Parties with junk food, candy, and other unsafe food seems to become more important to a handful of parents and staff who can be loud and intimidating with their objections. Unfortunately, we were all witness to that false diatribe a month ago at our last meeting. Can you close your eyes for a moment and picture what it must be like for a parent to send their little child off to school every day who possesses this life-threatening condition and go into a school community that has issues of trust or does not keep her safe? Worse yet, these children and their families have to endure bullying. Last year, I witnessed a parent, Bethany Danwitz, who actually spoke here before this board, who apparently by her laugh thought it was funny to bring in a donut containing the killer allergen, then added M&Ms to it to make it worse, and then placed it in front of this little 6-year-old child, telling her it was okay for her to eat, walked away knowing that this young child has a life-threatening allergy. Who does that? I can assure you I have the support of our supervisor, along with those who graciously took the time to review the proofs that assuredly demonstrate my proper conduct and professionalism in this manner. Our chief of police have confirmed that I was not creating a disturbance. There is no official police report, and I simply left the school on my own volition. I'd like to refer to you a site online, FARE, F-A-R-E. It's a food allergy advocacy and resource group. They have issued a PSA that shows that allergen children endure while going to school. They can endure pure torment and real bullying. The public service announcement is called Food Allergies. It's no joke. Thank you for all those who reached out to me with kind support. Thank you for listening. We all have a responsibility to protect our residents, including the children, and I'm honored to be this child's advocate and her shield. I want to thank you all for allowing me to read this and this board for this opportunity to right another wrong. This child's teacher also spoke before our board that the community didn't get to share, but the Spinal Column did a great job highlighting that. And if anyone would like to review her statement, please let me know. I just would like to sum it up that she did speak that sometimes parents, they interject when they don't know. And she was her teacher, and she did come here and supported me, and I appreciate that. So that's where I'm going to conclude my trustee comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Rogel.
Yeah, I have a story. So last Monday, it was about 7 o'clock. I got a call from my sister-in-law, who's a township water user, and she said, "Scott, our water quit working. What do I do?" I honestly didn't really know. It's after hours. You're gonna have to sit put till about 8 o'clock in the morning. I just put a call to the township, and somebody will come out. So she said, Aaron here came out the next morning, and went through the house, and somehow found out that the lever had been shutting off all water coming into the house. And thank God he figured it out. And cheap fix, right? So he left, and after he left, her 5-year-old son said, "Mom, I was playing with that lever yesterday." So thanks. They said they had nothing but good things to say about you. Good job.
Little secret. I knew it was him.
Thank
They
you.
billed for that service call, right?
That's it. Yeah, we'll bill that one.
Right.
Well, that is public service that,
That's it.
that's covered by your water rates.
Mr. Powell?
I just had a couple items. First of all, I wanted to thank this board. I really enjoyed being with all of you at the MTA. I learned a great deal at MTA, and I wanted to thank the public for allowing me to attend the MTA meetings this past week. It was a great time. I also mentioned to Supervisor Colwell that I believe that we have a great deal of past history here in the township, and some incredible people that have really instigated where we are today and helped us get where we are today, both living and passed away people. And I was hoping maybe we could have a memorial plaque or a monument somewhere in the township to for the township board to place names on it to memorialize various individuals in the township, and that could maybe continue on into the future. The last item was, and I noticed we turned the screen off after the presentation of the budget, and there's a very simple way to just scan certain items and have that be up there so that the member of the audience and certainly the public on TV can see some of the agenda items and the information instead of just the agenda. And I was hoping we might be able to institute that for future meetings. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Very good. Mr. Roman?
I just wanted to share an incident that I came across last week, and kind of wanted to get the board's input on it, and Chief Keller's advice as well. But I was going home for lunch, and I noticed a gentleman out of his car alone trying to steer it and push it at the same time across M59. I mean, crazy. I don't know if he ran out of gas or if his car broke down, but I wanted to help the guy, and I wasn't sure in that instance if would you call 911 or just 911.
Yeah, if there's an individual in the roadway and he may not know he's in peril, he's pushing the car on 59 or across 59, a 911 would be just fine.
Okay. Good enough, thanks. That's all I had.
Mr. Lilly?
Thanks. I again want to elaborate on what you said. I enjoyed my opportunity to meet with all of you. It's really nice to kind of meet socially and get away from our roles that we have to be up here and the friendly conversation and do it. I had a great time. So, and thank the board for allowing me to go to that as well. Had an opportunity to visit the pump houses last couple of weeks, and again want to reiterate the job that Aaron is doing for us and J&A. That there's a lot of work going into that pump house over there. I can't believe the amount of fittings and chemicals, and Aaron's trying to explain all this to me, and it's just, forget it. It's really great to have you aboard, that you have that kind of knowledge that you can give to us. I appreciate that. I not only want to thank this board, but all of our former board members and supervisors that we've had, from your brother Mike to Greg, 20 years has been a long time on this property, so I'm not gonna forget that, and I still got history from starting it, but it's gonna be so nice to be in what we're gonna call that vocal area for White Lake Township, and I know you have some great plans moving forward for Elizabeth Lake Road and whatever. I'm really looking forward to it, so I wanna thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, it's been an interesting first 100 days. I've had more things happen than you can shake a stick at, and the true expression, drinking from the fire hose, surely fits. It's been a learning curve. Being on the board as a trustee was an immense help. It gave me an inside view, a window, so to speak, as to how things work and how things don't work. Coming from the private sector, though, and this is in no disregard or discredit to any of my board members, but government in general, because of the bureaucracy that's involved in it, tends to move at snail speed, whereas when you're an independent businessman, you need to make snap decisions to, live and die sometimes in the economy. But the decisions that we make here, we try to make them as careful as we can. We take them very, very seriously. There's a very good, very, very good group, very good board to serve on and serve with. And it's always my pleasure to be a part of that. And I know that we'll be good stewards of this new era that we're going to be going into very shortly. We will be hopefully closing on the property on the 26th of April. I believe that's our projection date at this time. And from that point on, we're going to see just where the winds of fate take us. So it will be an interesting ride, and I'm hoping to be a part of it continuing. So I thank you very much. And with that being said, I would like to get a motion to move into executive session.
I'll make that motion. I made a motion already.
All right, I'm going to read the
yes.
MCL.
Make a motion to recess into closed session to consider attorney-client privilege communication in accordance with MCL 15.268H.
Support. Motion, support, in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's the word. Okay. Okay, we're going to take about a 7-8 minute recess. Thank you. Good night, folks. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.